Illegal affair. I met my wife Linda by fate. It was also by fate that I found out she was cheating on me. Although these events were separated by years, they happened in the same place. It happened in a place where I was doing business, in the city of Honolulu, Hawaii. The business I started came about by accident. I went to the University of Hawaii with the intention of getting my MBA, qualifying master's degree in management, and then getting a job with a Fortune 500 company. Even with in-state tuition, I still had to work to pay for school since my family was not very wealthy. In high school, I developed a passion for working with computers, so to get some extra money in college, I started repairing computers for other people. Eventually, I started building my own and selling them cheaper than Best Buy. I got my undergraduate degree, but decided not to go to graduate school. I had started my own business, so why would I want to work for someone else? In college, I realized I didn't know how to get along well with others. That lesson was as valuable as my degree. I had gotten to know Linda's brother Don before I even met her. He was having computer problems, or rather his father was. He brought over his dad's old Intellivision gaming console. It was a little-known piece of gaming equipment from the 1980s. Don's father was nostalgic about it, and Don wanted to restore it for his father's birthday. The console hadn't worked in over 10 years, but Don found it in the attic or basement or something. Don Eldridge was stacked like a brick. His chest was close to a rectangle, solid. In high school and college, he'd played soccer as a fullback. In those days, he let his curly brown hair grow long and wild, and he had a matching beard. Add to that a very large nose, which could have been called a trunk, and the fact that his name was Don, and inevitably someone started calling him Mastodon. That name stuck that way. Every time he made a great play, fans would make an elephant sound. Although he was physically imposing, his demeanor couldn't have been friendlier. Don would always reach out his hand to pick up the player he had just downed. He had a sense of fair play as well as terrific skills on the soccer field. If he hadn't injured his knee his senior year at the University of Hawaii, he might have made it to the NFL. The Mastodon was from Hawaiian royalty. Even though I'm not the least bit athletic, I've always followed the Rainbow Warriors team. Yes, that's the actual team name, taken from our shared alma mater long before rainbows were cool. Don showed up with a game console reliquary and said, "I hear you can help me with something." This man was not noted for his eloquence, but he had a talent for communication. Although I decided that continuing on to college wasn't for me, I was a little committed to the place where I had spent 4 years learning something I didn't want to do for the rest of my life. I was a bit smitten. Mastodon! I can't believe Hawaii's most attractive bachelor came to me. I'm Ryan, by the way. Ryan Novak. He gave me a friendly clap on the back, nearly dislocating my shoulder. Ryan, I won't be a bachelor for long. For some reason, one woman accepted my offer to marry my ugly ass. In our family, the most attractive one is my sister. That wasn't too high a bar. I quoted him my price, which was discounted, read break even, because I valued this man. I asked for an autographed picture of him that I could show him if he was satisfied with my service. I wasn't going to let the marketing course I had taken go to waste. 2 weeks later, I actually met Linda when she came to pick up Don's restored Intellivision because he was doing a local commercial and taking tourists on his boat for the Mastodonte tour. I was blown away. She had the same curls in her long brown hair as her brother. Her nose wasn't as prominent, and she was a few inches shorter. In fact, she had many of the same features in a much more attractive and petite package that also included breasts and dimples. She couldn't be called stunning, but she was certainly interesting and had the sex appeal of the girl next door. Think back to Jennifer Grey from Dirty Dancing. We started dating, and that's how I met her best friend and also her brother's wife, Candace. Candace and Linda had grown up together since elementary school. Candace had a crush on Linda's older brother, by 4 years, Don, ever since she reached the age of majority. Over time, Candace turned into a woman, and Don noticed his sister's friend and began courting her, or something like that. That's the luscious version I've been told. I'm pretty sure what happened is that Candace turned into a hottie. She's the kind of Hawaiian woman you see in travel commercials. A mix of Asian and native islander with God knows what other dose of attractiveness added to the recipe. I had no doubt she had her eye on him, and he was powerless to resist. When we all got together, I was the odd man out. All three of us shared memories that I had no part in. Eventually, I got the hang of it. One thing that came up was that Candace was never called by the obvious nickname Candy. She thwarted any attempts to use that nickname, and one night when I asked her why, she said, "Candy sounds like a frivolous girl. I don't want people to think of me that way." Don and Candace got married, and shortly thereafter, Linda and I got married. Linda and I had 2 children. For the purposes of this story, they are called Thing 1 and Thing 2. Don was shooting blanks, and he and Candace both wanted children, so their path was through adoption. Don and Candace adopted 2. They adopted each child around the same time Linda gave birth to our own. Adoption takes time, but it felt like we were all in sync with each other. It was great to be part of a strong quartet. We loved being around each other, our kids played with their kids, and we were just in each other's lives almost every day. Naturally, something so perfect can't last. The gods hate eternal happiness in our lives. I grew my business so much that Linda didn't have to work. I not only repaired and assembled computers, but also restored old arcade games and home game systems. I am grateful to Don for that dose of inspiration. I can fix an Atari 2600 or restore a Journey arcade game to perfect working condition. Some people are willing to pay a lot of money to play a poor quality video game just to have Journey music playing in the background. The change came when our kids were old enough to go to school. Linda wanted to work part-time. I didn't object to that, and why would I? I didn't want my beloved to be bored. She took a job with a credit card company in their call center. It was 4 hours a day, and she always managed to get the kids off to school and back before they got home. I was happy. She was happy. We all should have been on the poster child of what families should be. It was Candace who accidentally revealed the fact that Linda was cheating on me. It was my regular work day when Candace called me and said, "Ryan, I really need you to work on my computer. It's urgent. I need it right now." The urgency was that her laptop had turned into a piece of metal that wouldn't even start up. Candace was an aspiring writer, and her stories were only in that laptop. I assured her I'd do my best, gave her a lecture on the need to back up her work on a flash drive, and then set to work. It wasn't hard to recover the data. Candace's antivirus protection had expired, and she had disconnected herself by visiting or downloading something she shouldn't have. Curiosity got the best of me, and I started looking for the culprit. It turned out to be a picture that Linda had sent in an email. In that email was a picture of a very handsome man with no shirt on. I later learned that his name was Hunter Sampson. Linda's text accompanying the photo read, "That's my boss." The photo and the exclamation point led me to examine Candace's email correspondence with Linda. Without going into too much detail, I will say that Linda's boss sent her this picture and she shared it with her best friend. I'll say this for my sister-in-law. She questioned Linda about what happened. What did she say that her boss saw fit to send her a picture of him showing off his magnificent abs? She was ruthless in that email exchange when Linda tried to brush it off, saying it was just a picture of him surfing because she was interested in seeing a picture of him. Candace couldn't stand it and explicitly told her that she was very close to crossing the line. Linda backed down and agreed. She made all the right noises and said that she would not encourage such a thing again. Things were looking good, and yet I still had my suspicions. Was it over after Candace told her off? I couldn't be sure, so I looked at Linda's laptop. Knowing that she was aware of what I did for a living, I knew she had enough sense to delete all the denunciatory emails and to empty the recycle garbage can if she sent something that shouldn't be seen. What she didn't delete was her sent messages. This is confusing to a lot of people. That folder was just a cavalcade of enlightenment. Many of her messages were in response to a previous one, so I quickly got a pretty good picture. By picture, I mean that Linda sent him a picture of her breasts. She didn't send any more pictures, even though Hunter asked for one. She told him she would when he sent a picture of his. He simply said that she would have to see it in person because no picture could convey it fully. After that, the subsequent emails got even worse. Yes, they made love after that. They both raved about how good they felt every time they met and couldn't wait for the next time they met. I did what any normal person would do when I looked through my wife's private email and discovered what I had discovered. I decided to meet her face to face that evening. It had to be handled delicately since it was a Wednesday and the kids had school the next day. The neighbors would call the police, and I didn't want the evening to turn out that way. Kids tend to remember moments like that. So when I got home that evening, I answered her question. "Hi, honey, how was your day?" with the words, "Let's talk about it later." She sensed that I was troubled. I must have a terrible poker face. She didn't press me. We had dinner and put the kids to bed. No. We walked over to the couch and she looked at me and said, "Whatever is on your mind, I hope you know you can talk to me about it." She looked at me expectantly. "I'm so glad I can. It can be hard for men to open up about their feelings. You make me feel comfortable that I can talk to you right now." I put my hand on top of hers. Linda looked touched. "Of course you can, honey. I'm your safe space." She squeezed my hand and I squeezed it back, looking her straight in the eye and said, "Thank you for that. It really bothers me that you're dating your boss. So I'd really like to talk about how we can handle the divorce so it doesn't hurt the kids." She yanked her hand away from mine like it was radioactive. Then her face turned white and she made a sound like a dying animal, walked out the front door, got in her car, and drove away. It didn't quite go the way I had envisioned. I had a whole speech prepared that I was going to give, and her leaving ruined it. It was worse than cheating. I had really rehearsed so many choice comments in my head. I had tried so hard to confront everything head-on, and it had only gotten worse. Now I had to get the kids ready for school in the morning, and that was really none of my business. I had no way to speak up or get an explanation, and I was suddenly a single dad with 2 kids. For the next 2 days, Linda maintained radio silence. I had no idea where she was or what she was thinking. She just disappeared. Explaining to the kids where she had gone was just a wait-and-see tactic. Until I heard from her, I didn't know what to say to avoid traumatizing them. So I told them what I thought they could understand without worrying. "Mom is visiting Aunt Candace and Uncle Don." As it turned out, this was true. Linda was staying with her best friend and her brother. I found out thanks to a phone call from Don, who invited me over to his house to talk things over while the kids were out, in Linda's presence. I love Don and Candace. This was clearly an intervention. Curiosity made me agree, as did the desire to finally give my speech. As an added bonus, all of our kids were going to spend the weekend with their grandmothers. That meant there was plenty of room to shout. The intervention took place at Don and Candace's house. Don and Candace were sitting on the couch as a united couple. Linda and I sat in comfortable chairs across from the couch. In retrospect, I can tell you it was a fortunate arrangement. Don and Candace were not taking sides. Rather, we were both like we were in front of a court of law. Don started the conversation by saying, "Ryan, I love you. You've been a great husband to my sister, and I will always adore you for that. But I know my sister has hurt you. I hurt too, brother, and I want you to know that. I hurt for both of you." My fingernails dug into the armrests of the expensive chair I was sitting in when I said, "Well, thank you, Don. I'm glad you feel my pain. I'm glad you can empathize. I really wish Hunter could share my pain, too. After all, he played a part in causing it. I wish he could feel the pain all over his body because that's how I feel right now." Candace interjected, "I hope you're not thinking about physical abuse." "A little bit. I want to hit him with a cricket bat." Candace smiled slightly. "Why not a baseball bat?" "Because I don't want to go to jail for assault, and I think a cricket bat would probably cause less injury." I also like the way that flat bat hits his ass and other places. I want every part of his body to be so painful that it hurts him to put on or take off his clothes. That's impractical for 2 reasons, Don said. Why not? We live on an island where no one plays cricket. Where are you going to find a cricket bat? Don was right. The second reason? Violence has never solved anything. I disagree. It stopped fascism in Europe. You can't compare Hunter to a Nazi. Well, you're right, there's no comparison. The Nazi never made love to my wife. Linda finally contributed. I know the worst part of this for you must be the lies and deception. This breach of trust is going to be hard to repair. I was silent for a few seconds. Everyone looked at me, waiting to see how I would react to her suggestion. That's not really the worst of it. The worst part is that you had a relationship with someone other than me, I said. Linda tried to take what she thought was a chance that I would accept her sincere and remorseful confession. I only made love to him 7 times. I nodded. That's a relief. Thank God it was only 7 times and not some unforgivable number. Since you all seem to be experts on the subject, what exactly is that number supposed to be? I looked around at everyone present. No one answered the question. I didn't expect anyone to, since the question was rhetorical. Don decided to dodge the answer. Once, twice, 100 times. That's not what's important. What matters is that Linda wants to restore your marriage and is incredibly remorseful. It didn't take a second for Candace to back him up. That's so true. Can you be sure that the problem you're facing isn't your ego? I didn't even have to think about how to answer that question. I can answer that unequivocally, Candace. Of course it's my ego. I just can't believe all of you here are trying to minimize it. Listen to me, brother, Don said. Your ego is something you can control. Nobody is trying to minimize it. You can strengthen yourself by defeating your ego. Why let it stand in the way of true love? Look at it this way. Forgiveness is a gift you give not only to the other person, but to yourself. I felt like I was in the Twilight Zone or Los Angeles. So, I asked Linda, if I had an affair with a woman 7 times in 3 months, would you forgive me? Oh, yes, yes, and yes again. I would hate it. It's the worst thing I can imagine, but I'd take you back. I'll prove it to you. Have an affair with me. I deserve it. I want you to have an affair. Please do it if it'll help us get back together. It could be with anyone, with my best friend, my worst enemy, or a complete stranger. I'll admit that she said all the right words. But those words didn't answer the question of why she did it, so I asked the question. Linda, why did you do it in the first place? It had nothing to do with you, Ryan. When Candace and I did double dates, she always got the attractive one, and I always got the less attractive friend. I never got the handsome one. This was the only time a handsome guy was interested in me. It didn't improve my mood. I know I'm not handsome. What surprised me was that Candace seemed more pissed off than I was. She said, "Do you really blame it all on me, you fool?" she said. I was afraid Candace was going to get in her face, but Don held his wife back. Linda got up from her chair and said, I don't blame you at all. I was just jealous. Oh, please don't think I blame you. You're my sister. It was my insecurity. I don't want to lose our friendship. Candace stopped thrashing in Don's arms. You will never lose my friendship. We always have been and always will be sisters. I'm sorry you didn't get the pretty boys. You deserved it, though no handsome man can compare to my Don. It's a shame you didn't meet him sooner to realize that looks aren't the most important thing. I felt like the conversation had somehow gotten away from me, and at that moment, I was more concerned about myself than anything else. I tried to get the conversation back on track. Candace, I know you love your best friend, and you say I'm a good friend too. If I cheated on Linda, would you be as forgiving? Would you still encourage your best friend to make up with me? Candace somehow switched from the emotional moment she was having earlier and answered, Yes, I would. Here's why. She was able to compartmentalize it. What she did had nothing to do with you. She lived two separate lives. That sounds like utter nonsense, I said. I know it's hard for men to understand, Candace replied, but all women, to some extent, are capable of it. That was unexpected, too. I turned to the only man in the room to get his opinion. So, Don, if Candace cheated on you for 3 months, would you forgive her? Don looked at me resentfully. That's a ridiculous question. Candace is not some dirty cheater who would betray her husband and risk her marriage. Linda began to sob. The water currents and vocals were impressive. Don looked annoyed. What I meant was that we can all be tempted, even Candace. Not that she would ever go to temptation, but if she did, I would forgive her. This struck me as utter nonsense, so I asked his wife, Candace, if you cheated on Don, whom I know you love, would you expect to be forgiven? I can't believe you're even suggesting that I would do that. I'm not some fool. Linda let out a catcall and curled up into a fetal position. Candace ran up to her and hugged her. No, Linda, you're not. You're not a cheater just because you made love to another man other than your husband. Linda sobbed even louder. Candace tried to quickly remedy the situation. Making love with someone else doesn't make you a cheater. You didn't do it for the money. You did it because you have low self-esteem issues. At this point, Linda started shaking and began punching herself in the face. I saw Don contemplating whether to call an ambulance. Don and Candace grabbed her hands and held Linda back from abusing herself. I once again tried to bring the voice of reason into the room after Linda was restrained from manhandling herself. I looked at Candace. So, let me make sure I get this right. Linda wants me to have an affair. Don says he'd forgive you for having an affair, and you're saying it's normal for someone to want love with an attractive man, and this oversight shouldn't be placed on him. Am I right? Yes. We've all told you that, Don replied. Candace, you also told me that I should love Linda as much as you do because I'm the one who married her. Yes, Ryan. You married her, for better or worse. Don and I show more concern for her well-being than you do. She's clearly not herself. Well, I said, you've all given me a lot of food for thought. It seemed like a good time to bow out and end the evening. I liked Don. I liked Candace. And I loved Linda like hell. To cut them all out of my life would be painful. However, this evening had turned into a circus, and not in a good way. I left feeling like I had violated their close relationship, but none of them really cared about me. I went home and stared at the ceiling for hours, pondering. Around 3 in the morning, an epiphany came over me. I managed to get 2 hours of sleep after running the thought through my head several times. After my first cup of coffee, I woke up to the doorbell ringing. Yes, I wake up after my first cup of coffee. I didn't remember how I managed to get Thing 1 and Thing 2 to school. I wasn't sure I fed them. It was Candace. I invited her in, but was wary. The previous night had been a shit show. I pulled out a second cup of coffee and poured her one. Sorry about the shit show last night, Candace said. I almost spit out my coffee when she echoed my thoughts. After a few seconds, I said, I've decided you're right. You're showing more concern for her well-being than I am. So, I have a solution. I'm glad you've come to your senses. I paused for dramatic effect. You and I are going to have an affair. After that, Linda will be completely forgiven. What? Seriously, what? Linda said I could have an affair if it would make things better, so I'm taking her word for it. Don said he'd forgive you if you cheated on him, so I'll take his word for it. You said you expect to be forgiven, so I'm taking you at your word. I need to talk to Don about this before I even think about it. It's gonna make no sense. Linda kept it from me, lied, and kept me in the dark. Don's already said he'll forgive you, so you don't need to consult him. If you need to, tell him after it's over. Linda never told me, and I had to catch her. Hell, I want you to tell him after it's over, but not before. I will definitely tell Linda. How the hell am I supposed to see Don every day and keep it a secret? You could try compartmentalizing. I hear all women can do it better than men. I don't think I can do that. There's too much to think about. Why don't you just find someone else? Well, Father Time wasn't kind to my hairline. I'm sure I won't find a pretty girl who really likes me. I'll probably have to hire an escort. Not exactly an affair. You have a vested interest and an amazing body. So you're my option. Her answer was, I'll have to think about it. Of course, that meant no. I wasn't surprised that Candace didn't really mean what she said. I made plans for divorce. 2 days later, Candace had a change of heart. I decided to accept your decision. I wish I could say it was because she had been fantasizing about my body all along and just accepted the inevitable. Actually, the reason was more predictable. She showed up at my house in a frenzy, not even knocking, just opening the door and barging in. I can't take it anymore. She's driving Dawn and me crazy. She's destroying my marriage. I could have said something sarcastic at that point, but when things are going well, it's best to stay out of the way. It's a shame because I had a killer line. Candace agreed to all my terms. Her only reservation was her insistence that if she went all the way, I would indeed forgive Linda. Frankly, I didn't expect her to agree to anything I said, so I hesitated for a moment. That moment was immediately followed by, absolutely. I'm only doing this because, Candace said, she's my best friend. And you? I'm not too fond of you right now. But she agreed, and that was a big deal. Once she agreed, we were able to work on the details. She had concerns. It would look suspicious if you forgave Linda right away. How do we explain to Linda and Dawn that you're taking Linda back? I had an answer to that question. All I needed to do was offer Linda a lifeline. That afternoon, I called Linda during my lunch break. Linda, I need you to report your relationship with Hunter to Human Resources. Why? I can't claim it was harassment. I'm not gonna lie. I wouldn't ask you to do that, my dear. I wouldn't ask you to do something unethical that would touch your conscience. However, after reading your employee handbook, I found that it has a policy prohibiting fraternization between supervisor and subordinate. You know, one of those policies designed to prevent the possibility of harassment. You really work for a forward-thinking company. So just report the relationship. That's what she did. Turns out Hunter was married to a very wealthy woman, and they had a prenup between them. It's a gift when your enemy turns out to be kind enough to stick his head in a noose for you, and all you have to do is knock the chair out from under him. Let's just say bad things happened to Hunter, and he left Hawaii never to be seen again. After Linda did this, I welcomed her back home. I greeted her with kisses, and we made passionate love that evening when she came home. Linda and I were together again, but in my mind, it was conditional. I hadn't completely put my doubts aside. Linda could feel it. Even though we made love and acted like a family, she knew I hadn't fully forgiven her. She knew there was still a wall between us. And she was right. That wall wouldn't come down until Candace did. Candace didn't back down when I arranged our first date. I made sure it was spectacular. I booked a room at the Four Seasons Hotel with a king-sized bed. I sprinkled rose petals all over the lightly unfolded bedspread, lit candles, and made sure they wouldn't set off the smoke alarm because I had turned it off. A bottle of champagne and a vase of strawberries would be the first thing she'd see when she entered the house. If this was going to be an illicit affair, I was going to play the role of lover to the fullest. I wanted her to be interested in it, so it was only right that I was into it too. It turned out to be easy for me. I was looking forward to this moment, and although part of me felt like Candace might snap at any moment, I wasn't going to ruin her mood. I was going to do my part and trust that she would do hers. Otherwise, we would just be right back where we started. Candace shattered my expectations. She showed up in a long coat, completely inappropriate for this climate, and carrying something that could very well have been an overnight bag. Ryan, what's with the champagne and strawberries? That's not gonna work. Why not? I already have the most romantic, wonderful best lover in the house, so I don't want you to even dream of being the best lover. Sweep those fucking rose petals off the bed. I also don't eat strawberries, and just give me a few minutes in the bathroom. Does that mean you're saying no? No, it doesn't mean you're ignorant. It means we're going to make love. I better not see one damn rose petal on this bed when I get out of this bathroom. She slammed the door as she walked in with her overnight bag. As I waited for her to come out, the poor thing wilted by the minute, and I wondered, what the hell is she doing in there? The woman who emerged from the bathroom was bundled up in a black bra that was a size smaller than it needed to be and black panties that looked like they had been painted on. Her newly applied lipstick was a shade of red. So, if this works, I'm Candy. You don't make love to me, you don't call me Candace, I'm Candy. I'm not your lover, I'm your victim. Every time we meet, I'm Candy, and I'm here to fulfill your request. So much for my plans. I was all ears. Call me Candace one time, and it's over. From now on, and until we're done being hot and sweaty, I'm Candy. You got a problem with that? Once again, stay out of it. Suppress the sarcastic comment and just say nothing. I grabbed her, and in a moment our tongues were dancing. It wasn't what I had imagined or planned. This was better. Candace, or was it Candy, took me to the bed, pushing me onto it. After that, we made love. The next encounters were a variation of the first. We made love. It was getting harder and harder to arrange these meetings. Sneaking around was much harder than I had imagined. This was largely due to the fact that Linda wanted to call me at every opportunity to assure me where she was and that she wasn't cheating on me. This made it much more difficult for me to cheat on her. I also assumed that Candace had a hard time hiding it from Dawn, but we never talked about it. When we did get together, it was just a love marathon. While my affair with Candy lasted, I surprised myself by ceasing to feel hostility toward Linda. Each infrequent rendezvous of hot love with Linda's best friend allowed me to appreciate lovemaking with my wife even more. After each illicit rendezvous with Candy, I became more and more comfortable with Linda. We were getting back to where we were before. I appreciated the insatiable lovemaking with Candy, but it also made me appreciate the tender time with Linda. I wondered if that's what she felt, too, as she juggled love with Hunter and continued to love me. The only awkward moments at first were when it was just the four of us. Dawn or Linda would make perfectly innocent remarks, but my brain would say, "Don't look at Candace, don't look at Candace, don't look at Candace, don't look at Candace." For example, Dawn once said, "I admire you, Ryan. I know this was hard for you. You chose the right path. You could have hired an attractive girl as revenge, but you didn't. You asked Linda to make it up to you, and she did. Good for you, brother." While I was thinking, why does Dawn think I should hire a girl? My mind turned on, and then, you don't have to look Candace in the eye. So I said, "Thanks, bro." Candace seemed at peace with the whole situation. I had to admit that there was something about women being better at compartmentalizing a situation. As for me, I was on guard, waiting for any comment that hinted at sexual innuendo. While our things were playing with other things and the adults were drinking wine, Linda looked at Dawn and Candace and said, "I want to thank you both for your support. You have helped Ryan and I to be together again." Then she kissed me. After we broke the kiss, all I could think about was, don't look at Candace, don't look at Candy. This was relatively easy since Candace avoided meeting my eyes in these situations as well. Candace and Candy seemed like two different people. Candy would send me texts when we were getting close to meeting. And yes, it was Candy, not Candace. I briefly worried that I might be contributing to multiple personality disorder, but dismissed the thought because I had a marriage to save. Nothing worthwhile comes for nothing. Candy was sending me pictures of her in seductive outfits. Yes, I had seen her naked before, but those pictures still turned me on. She was sending them on Snapchat. It wasn't that I couldn't keep them if I wanted to, I just didn't want to do it. I made love to Candy to prove a point to her, Dawn, and Linda. I also slept with her because she was attractive. I had no idea if my relationship with these people would continue at the end, but I hoped so. I'm an idealistic asshole. Candy proved to be more than true to her word. She was a beast. The exception was the last night. We had more time than usual since we didn't have to worry about getting caught. After that evening, Candace made it clear that she was going to tell Dawn everything. We were going to leave with a final yay. How are you feeling? I feel like I just died. Maybe we should end things on a high note and not go for round 2. She giggled before saying in her most girly voice, I was really hoping that the rumors about you being a weakling were untrue. After our last frenetic lovemaking session, the first thing I did was shower, managing to keep my balance. Candy showered next, and when the bathroom door opened again, Candy was already gone for good. When Candace emerged from the bathroom, she was dressed in her usual modest attire. However, her demeanor said it all. We were done. It was a good thing. Indulging in candy every now and then is nice, but a steady diet of it will kill you. Candace left before I did. There was no goodbye kiss, just a discussion of what we were going to do next. She was going to tell Dawn everything that night, and after she did, we would tell Linda everything. After all, it was a family affair. Candace would tell Dawn, and then we would all meet at my house. I told Linda that Dawn and Candace would come over after the stuff went to bed. It was time to put everything on the table. Don had some business that came up, so he was going to be late arriving. So it was just me, Candace, and Linda. I started first. Linda, I'm totally ready to forgive you. In fact, I'm ready. But before you accept it, I think Candace should speak up first. Linda rejoiced upon hearing my words, then looked at Candace, perplexed. I slept with Ryan. Linda immediately gave Candace a hug. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh my God, you really are my sister? Candace hugged her back. I'm so sorry I had to do this. It was the only way out. I love you, Linda said passionately. It should have been you. Now I don't have to worry about whether Ryan got some disease or if he got someone pregnant. Oh, thank you. It didn't go the way I expected. I assumed the intervention was bullshit. I didn't believe anyone was sincere in what they were saying. Turns out I was wrong. When I'm wrong, I admit it, no matter how painful it is. I joined them in a group hug. I looked at Linda and said, All is truly forgiven. I want to spend the rest of my life with you. She jumped on top of me and kissed me. Thank you, my love. You'll never regret it. Well, I guess we all learned some valuable lessons. Eventually, I had to put her down on the ground. I looked at Candace and said, You showed me something, and I want to apologize to you. I embarrassed you, and you showed me the true meaning of love. I was wrong to ask you to do that. You made me a better man by showing me what true love is. Candace squeezed me tightly in her arms and smacked my lips. Not at all like she had in the last few months. I did it for both of you. You two were made for each other. The doorbell rang. I assumed it was Dawn. I'll get it. As I approached the door, I realized I had a lot to say. I had learned a lot about myself and the people close to me. Tears came to my eyes as I realized that the people around me were far more selfless than I was. I tried to point out how hypocritical those around me were, and I discovered that they weren't. It was all about my male ego. I had to apologize to everyone, but especially Dawn. Dawn, there are women crying. Truth be told, I feel like crying myself. I've learned quite a few things about myself, and not all of them good. I've learned some things about myself, too, Dawn said. I think you may have been right about something when you talked about the male ego. I dismissed that concept too quickly. Dawn had a strange look on his face. It took me a while to figure out what the emotion was, since I had never seen it on Dawn's face. And then it hit me. Barely suppressed rage. Ah, that was it. At that moment, I had two questions. One, how did he find the cricket bat so quickly? The second was whether a half-second head start was enough to get to the back door before an enraged mastodon with a sore knee caught up with me. I decided that the answer to the first question could wait and rushed through the house. The end!